the number one relationship advice for women from a man that all women need to hear. In this video, I'm gonna take you through a coaching framework I use with my clients. My name is Ed JC Smith. I've been a coach for over 25 years. I got into relationships specifically because I had a lot of bad relationship patterns myself. Finally met someone, wanted it to actually last. In the last year alone, I've trained over 21,000 coaches, and my current research in relationships will be for my PhD in how to remove emotional triggers in relationships. So what is the best advice for a woman in relationships? Just a heads up, I don't like content that separates people like men and women or put them together. And of course, for every good behavior a man or woman can do and every bad behavior a man or woman can do. So I'm never putting women against men. It's just some people search for different content. Now, this is very common. I see it in my relationship community. A lot of females, they overgive and they don't know where their boundary is, and thus they start to become resentful and suffer from people pleasing. I do love this quote: you teach people how you want them to treat you. Many women are raised to avoid conflict, people please, which leads to putting other people's needs in front of theirs. And I think when women don't have boundaries set in, they end up losing themselves. The relationship itself loses as well. They start to think, well, my partner should just know, and so therefore they should be able to fulfill based on knowing, but yet they haven't told them. And then often confusing peacekeeping with love, which isn't real love. The biggest strategies that I could give in this area is understanding what your needs are and what your partner's needs are, what your love languages are and what your partner's love languages are, so that you understand, different love languages is like speaking in French and Japanese. Just because you're speaking doesn't mean you're connecting, and that's how relationships are. If men tend to be highly in the service act, so they'll go and do tasks for you to show that they care, but yet when it comes to actually hearing and understanding your emotions, it's an area where, unless a man is trained, they're going to find it very difficult to understand your emotions, because they don't understand their own emotions. Remembering, someone who can't handle their own emotions can't handle your emotions either. Not their fault, but they do need some training in that regards. Learning to say no without guilt. And I think there's a lot of content online that isn't that helpful in terms of setting boundaries. How do you actually set a boundary? First of all, you assess where the boundary needs to be put in. So you set it, right, and then you assess, right? You set and assess, because off the back of that assessment, it might be too strong, it might not be strong enough. And there's understanding your emotional needs off the back of setting that boundary. So for example, if your boundary happens to be, I need to go to bed at a certain time, and yet your partner keeps on breaching that boundary, then you have to recommunicate that boundary. It's not their fault that they keep on breaching that boundary if you're not that person to tell them that the boundary is there in place. And the reason that boundary is in place is because you need to get up the next day and you need to handle things and situations, etc. And if you don't get enough sleep, then it's a much harder day. And it's not because you don't want to connect, because some people prefer connecting at night, sometimes people prefer connecting in the day, whatever that may be, but there has to be mutual respect from that boundary. And without that boundary, real respect can't really occur. The 3 C's framework I found really helpful with my clients. Clarity, number 1. Be clear on what your needs and your values are. If you haven't done your values on your needs, then you quite simply, what is important to you? Write down. What are the most important contributing things for you? When I talk about values and needs with my clients, more often they go I don't really get that. Just write down what's important. Is it to go to bed? With this idealistic relationship in your head, what would be the perfect scenario? What would that be for you? Without putting words into your, how would you want to be talked to? How do you want to be treated? What would you do together? Where would you go? Where would you live? All of these things, this idealistic kind of ideal. Now, I'm not saying just because you don't have this, it doesn't mean that you can't have a connected relationship. It's great to have these things to aspire to. Some are not going to be possible. That's okay, right? But it's also to understand, what are your partner's needs, right? And if you understand what they are, what's important to you, and list it out in detail. If you've got more questions, I can always comment below, and I can always help you more specifically on what your values are, right? Understand what their values are, understand where your values are, what your needs are, and notice where the disalignment occurs, right? Because through that, if there's misalignment, that's when disconnection occurs, and disconnection creates resentment, and resentment is what breaks down your relationship. So the first C, clarity. The second is communication. You've got to get clear on communicating exactly what your values are so that your partner understands. You've got to set it and assess it. If it's too strict of a boundary, right, it's too difficult for everyone to acknowledge and respect, then maybe you have to look at reevaluating a new boundary in place. The last C is courage. You have to take a stand for who you want to be. And I think sometimes in a relationship it's difficult. My clients often say, well, you know, one of us is really giving, and one of us is really forgiving, and one of us is really rigid. Like, you have to find what works for you. If both are rigid, it's not going to work, right? If both are too easy, it's not going to work. It's like when you're dealing with relationships, it's the yin and yang of life. It's like there's no black and white answers. There's areas of gray. It's this equilibrium approach. It's the paradox of life, right? People want amazing things to happen in their life, but they don't want the pain to happen. You can't have a relationship without pain. You can't be really super successful without a level of pain. There's always upside and there's always downside. There is equal and opposite paradoxical reactions in anything that you do. You can't go to the gym, right, and lose weight without something happening as well. There's got to be pain, there's consequence. I remember I used to be a trainer back in the day, and I used to have a client who said, I want to go to the gym, lose weight without sweating. Doesn't work, right? There has to be that, right? You can't have immense love for someone and without any pain. It just doesn't work. Right, what happens is that when you fall in love, you will always fall out of love at some stage. Why? Because that person's going to die. You're not falling out of love, but that love has transformed. You still love that person, but they're in a different form. And what you will experience is huge pain. And so even if you have this most idyllic relationship and you're together forever, when they die, you're going to experience huge pain. And it will be a lifetime of pain because you've gone through this utopic relationship where everything was beautiful. So your pain at the end is going to be a lot more. It's just, you can't escape the pain. If you're a woman watching this right now, remember clarity, communicate your needs clearly, find out what your partner's needs are so you can fulfill them too. You fulfill your partner's needs, they will never leave you. The second C is communication. You need to express that in non-conflict ways, in mutual understanding. This is not, this needs to happen. This is not dictatorship. This is, honey, I've noticed that we're not aligned in certain areas. Would you mind if I let you know how we could express this so we could stay more in line together? I'm really excited about finding out about your values and your needs. What do you need from me to fulfill your happiness in our relationship? Right? This mutually accepted relationship conversation, not you're a dictator and this is going to happen or else everyone gets kicked out. And the last is the courage to stand up and have those conversations. Don't hide from the conflict. The longer you hide from the conflict, the worse it gets. If you like videos like this, you'll like the next video, how to stop getting triggered by your partner.